All right, folks, education is an issue that we always talk about here on this show. And the group 50 Can, they have been very much involved in ed reform in this country. I'm on their board of directors, and also we've been sharing an office space with for the past 3 years. Derrell Bradford is the new president of 50 Can. He joins us right now. Derrell, glad to have you back on the show. First and foremost, what's your goal as president of 50 Can? What do you want to accomplish?
Don't mess it up. Thank you very much for having me, and obviously, thank you for being involved with everything that we do and carrying this message to your audience in a way that only you can. I guess the three things I'm working on primarily, one of them is that we need a better vision for for the education system that we want in this country. And so we built a sort of a marketing platform that we call Believe in Better, which is just about the way that, the education system should work, about what you should be entitled to and what you should have as a family, about the sort of freedoms and flexibility that you deserve as somebody who's trying to help a kid become the best version of themselves. And it's great to talk about it, but the actual work of 50 Can, as you know, is to help pass laws in states. And so my first and maybe most important project is to take that vision and turn it into actual policies that people can, talk to state legislators about, or governors, or people in their communities, and get off the ground and hopefully, improve the quality of education for all kids in the country. So I guess that's the first thing. The second thing is that, and you know this, right? We're a nonprofit, and now we're like a quasi black-led nonprofit, and we're working in 10 states, and many of our executive directors are people of color. And to do this work, you can't do it for free. And so the next thing is kind of how do we continue to make it sustainable? How do we continue to get people to understand that education doesn't just improve itself? Charter schools didn't just happen. Somebody had to pass a law to do that. So a group of people had to lobby to do that. And, many other issues, it's not free to do that. So that's really the second thing. And then the third, and I guess maybe the final one, I'm succeeding a extraordinary and a former elected official, and just a wonderful mind on policy and strategy. And I just want to figure out what about 50 Can is different with me as its president than with her as its president. And she really got us to this place that we are now, and we're all incredibly grateful for the work that she did. But it's what's that next phase? Is it louder? Is it harder? Is it more nuanced? Is it more interesting? I got to figure that out, and I got to figure it out soon.
I've made this point that the ed reform movement has been all too often white-led, white-run, and the reality is that you can't change education in America if you don't have Black folks who are at the positions of power.
Yeah, I mean, one of the I almost take it for granted. The amount of people who were like, I can't believe you're the president of 50 Can. It was the outpouring from other Black folks who work in the movement and who have jobs like mine was sort of was shocking. There's a real, underrepresentation at the decision-making level, and it is just different to be at the decision-making level. When you're not just deciding for you, but you're deciding for lots of folks. I think the other thing too is just power works the way it works, right? People have money, they have connections, and they do things. And the first group of people 25 years ago, whatever, that were doing ed reform were basically white people who went to Ivy League colleges, right? And so that those are the people that were doing it. It is not in the political interests of anybody to have a movement that is narrow in that way and that isn't diverse, right? And so you'll see now, it's late to the party, and I don't need to tell you, but finally people are focusing on the fact that look, we built all these systems up, we don't have enough Black-led schools, right? The independent school sector is basically the place where you see the Black-led schools. It's how come we don't have any more? Why don't we have more community-based charter schools, right? Why is it that the American teaching force is 80% white. Like, what's the policy agenda around that? You know, we have states that are working on those kind of issues too. So just from a practical standpoint, even if you didn't care about whether or not Black people or people of color were involved at leadership level or whatever, their people care, right? Like, voters care, and you know, diverse coalitions are better. You go back to our fledgling candidate from Kentucky. You know, he's going and he's talking to everybody, and that has been something that the education reform movement has not done well either.
So, last question I have for you in terms of this next year. What specifically do you want our audience to be doing, or when it comes to ed reform? You know, what should they be advocating for?
Yeah, so I could think of 10 things, but I'm only going to give you 3 because allegedly that's what a good speech is. So the first one is, be ready for the fall to be crazy, because I think people believe that with this huge infusion of money from Washington, D.C., $190 billion for K-12 education over the last 12 or 15 months or something, that everybody's sort of on a glide path back to school, and that is not true. Like they're already like teacher union leaders in particular who are like stoking up kind of discontent and anxiety around Delta variant and everything else, right? So just be prepared for an incredibly disrupted start to the school year. That's the first thing. The second thing I would just say, and I mentioned that money, and I know the last time I had a chance to talk to you, we brought it up then. Like, more money than has ever been spent in a single year, right, is being spent on American K-12 education right now, and nobody knows anything about it. So, like, there's a woman who runs this thing called the Edunomics Lab at Georgetown, and she's like, school districts, they're not working on on hiring a bunch of new tutors, right? They're not working on an extended day or like a huge summer program so the kids who've been inside for a year can go out and run around or go to museums or anything, right? They're giving everybody raises, right? They're taking on long-term projects that are like capital projects that have nothing to do with intervening in the next year and a half for kids who are wildly behind. And in Texas, your home state, they released a bunch of data about this last year. I mean, we're talking about like 2, 3 grades worth of learning loss in English, in language arts and math. Like, it is serious. And so the second thing is just like, be involved in that. Like, go pull yourself down a school board member, grab an elected official, tell them to be a part of it. Here's the third thing. Don't wait, right? So the best thing, if there can be any best thing about the last year and a half, is that we've seen lots of folks, Black folks, brown folks, white folks, all kinds of folks, right, solving problems of education themselves in a way that we have not normally seen. Part of that, I think, came out of the realization that, what ed reformers were saying was true, right? Like, we've been telling people forever that big urban school bureaucracies, they treat you bad unless you can move around. And folks are like, yeah, it can't be that bad. And now people are like, oh my God, it's really that bad. Like, I have this amazing mortgage. I can't get my kid into school. Like, what is going on here, right? And that just brought lots of different people to the table. And so this whole movement now that we see, which is like community-led, right? It's like, it's pods, like it's micro schools. It's like having an individual teacher who comes to you and a small group of people and teaches your kid. Like, those are the kinds of things we should be embracing, right? Like, let's make the disruptions of the past year and a half that gave us good things, let's make those things permanent while we try to build a better system for everybody.
All right, then. Derrell Bradford, 50CAN. If people want more information, where do they go?
50can.org, or you can find me online. I'm at DYRNWYN, and it's a big green eye. That's me. It is my eye. So, and thank you for having me, sir.
All right, Derrell, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.